Good evening, San Diego. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis, and thank you for tuning in for your CBS 8 Plus weather update. We got that cloud cover rolling right back in again. We saw that sunshine this afternoon and still felt those temperatures that were below seasonal. Now, with that marine layer coming back, we are also talking about it being on a repeat. Now, it gets a little bit thinner as we go into the middle of the week and also for the weekend with the area of high pressure building in. But we are talking about it extending more towards the inland valleys as well. So just kind of locked in for the coastal mountain slopes or for a coastal basin, so all areas west of the mountains. That reinforcement of the marine layer is also going to bring in the potential for some patchy drizzle, especially for the coast as we go from the night into the morning hours. Also slowly getting warmer all the way through Thursday. We have an area of low pressure that's still hanging around, and that's going to be in the forecast through about Thursday. And then we start to have a ridge of high pressure making a comeback and then influencing our temperatures as we feel more of the heat, especially for the mountains and the desert as we hit the weekend into the start of next week. So we had a coastal eddy that developed earlier today that brought in the cloud cover. You saw it kind of hanging on a little bit longer in those morning hours. By late morning into the early afternoon, that's when we started to see more of that sunshine. So we did still have some patchy clouds right there along the coast that were very stubborn to clear. And as we go into tonight, as mentioned, reinforcement of that marine layer. So that brings back the cloud cover right there along the coast and extending in towards the inland valleys. That also keeps our temperatures pretty consistent with widespread 50s for overnight lows. 53 degrees for Poway, 55 degrees for La Mesa, 59 for downtown, also in the 40s for Mount Laguna, as well as for Ramona and for Campo, and 66 degrees expected for Borrego Springs. For your daytime highs for tomorrow, we're looking at those widespread 70s across the inland valleys. You got 77 degrees for Escondido, got 72 degrees for Chula Vista and also for Miramar. You have 60s winning out right along the North County coastline, and no surprise there, locked into the heat, but it's actually below seasonal for this time of the year. We just kind of want to talk about that. It's about 105 is the average high for this time of the year for Borrego Springs. So still a toasty temperature, just not talking about it being seasonal at 98 degrees for our Tuesday. When you look at the surf forecast, it's about 2 to 4 feet with a moderate risk of rip currents at our local beaches. But the big talker over the next few days is definitely going to be those high tides. And so they're upwards of about 7 feet. We're going to have that after a little bit after 8 p.m. tonight and holding on to that range as we go into the next few days. And that's all because we have that approaching new moon. So that new moon phase by Wednesday, that's creating that extra pull on those evening high tides. Also during the daylight hours, just keep in mind that UV index still at an extreme reading. So we're still looking at these high tides in the evening hours upwards of about 7 feet and all the way through Thursday. So still looking at those really high tides upwards of about 7 feet. We get to about Friday, that's when it's going to be more so about 6.5 feet, but that's still an extra pull that's being created because of that new moon phase on Wednesday. When we look at the atmosphere, you have this area of low pressure that is still hanging over the west. That brought the cool down and the big change up in our forecast. If you think back to about a week ago from today, we were feeling the heat, especially across the inland valleys and also for the mountains. And that's why we had the heat advisory that went into effect. Also elevated fire weather concerns. Well, that heat is out. But area of low pressure is going to hang around just a little while longer. So it's going to allow for a gradual warm up as we go throughout the week. That still keeps our temperatures, even though they're going to gradually warm up day by day, below seasonal for this time of the year. But by the weekend, we feel more of that heat with an area of high pressure that's going to be expanding in. So it's that heat dome that we had last week that brought in the dry conditions by the afternoon hours. The heat that we had, those were definitely big factors, especially because we have a lot of dry vegetation out there. When it came to our fires we saw breaking out, vegetation fires, brush fires as well for last week. And now more of a grasp on them as change up in the forecast arrived by the weekend. So we've been seeing that, and CAL FIRE has been updating us. But now you're looking at that area of high pressure because that is also bringing a whole lot of heat across the Midwest, southern states, East Coast. They're dealing with it. It starts to let up a little bit more by the second half of this week, but then it shifts back towards the west. So that expands the heat, bringing it right back to us here, and also talking about those warmer than usual temperatures as we take a look more so focusing on on the mountains as well as for the desert. You're still going to have a warm up west of the mountains. It's just not going to be as hot. So you still have widespread upper 60s for tomorrow, back into widespread low 70s for daytime highs for the coast by the middle of the week. You have the 70s by tomorrow, but you're back into those low 80s. They take over from Wednesday all the way through Friday. Over the weekend, a little bit more of a climb in temperatures. 84 degrees looks to be the high on Saturday and Sunday. You have the 70s. That's going to be for the mountains by tomorrow. And then you see those temperatures responding to that area of high pressure shifting back west. As that ridge expands, you have low 80s for the mountains by Wednesday, but they turn into the upper 80s, potentially even some low 90s by Sunday and Monday. You have the 90s for daytime highs for the desert by tomorrow, back into triple digits. That will be by Wednesday, but you're looking ahead to a week from today. 109 looks to be the high for the desert, and that is above seasonal for this time of the year. We'll go ahead and have all the details in your forecast. Anything changes as the week progresses, but I'll go ahead and tell you to have a good night, and I'll be right back here tomorrow.